So I remember one of the first times that I was called a bitch as an adult. Now, as a kid, as a teen especially, I'd hear different people using it all around and about. But my friends are very aware that I wasn't about that life. And so I just kind of got to hear it in the periphery. Don't remember being called that directly, especially in a way that was malicious, but don't really remember being called that directly anyway. As an adult, I'm a licensed therapist, or at that point, actually, I think I was a registered intern, registered mental health counselor intern at the time, and doing group. It's a full room of people. We're doing our thing. And one of the members of the groups, it was a guy, said, "You are such a bitch." And I was like, hmm, everybody in the room is like, "Ooh." I said, "So could you tell me what it is that means to you?" Now, I want to preface it by saying this. I have historically been someone who can be calm under fire. I am a person who can stay calm in most situations. I don't get really activated if people call me names. I may not have been called to bitch directly, but I've been called plenty of other things. It doesn't tend to activate me. And I know that some people get very activated by name calling and all of that. I'm gonna come back to that and just my take on it and how I've always thought about it and explained it to my little sister. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish the story first. So this person calls me a bitch, and I say, "What does that mean to you?" Now he's like, "One, you always have something to say. Two, you just have this way of saying it that's directly to somebody that just I don't like it, and it sounds like a bitch to me." There was some other thing that he said that I can't quite remember right now, but you get the gist of it. And so here's what was important for me. I didn't handle it in that way so I can model to the other people in the room. That really wasn't on my mind. I wanted to understand the name he thought he was calling me, how he defines it. And two, to understand that was to actually see that everything that he described was right. If it is something that I have an opinion on or a thought about, I got something to say. I absolutely tend to communicate in a way that is very direct and to the point. So for me, it was really important to separate the name calling that I could have gotten all up in arms about from what he was actually trying to describe. And for him, what he was describing was a bitch. For me, it was describing someone who is straightforward and who wasn't shy about sharing their opinions. No, I'm not going to get into all the things of socialized stuff between genders and blah, 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 blah. We know that part. And if you don't, maybe a different day. But what he was describing was accurate. And I said that. I said everything that you described within that is absolutely true. I do always have something to say, and I tend to say it directly. What is not okay, though, is calling me a name. And so there was more that I said after that in addressing the name that he called me, but I absolutely validated the fact that what he was trying to describe and didn't have the words for was accurate. Here's my take on this. As a person who really loves words, and I know that words can be really important, words can help us to connect, words can help us to protect. Words are a beautiful thing. And I think that sometimes people get so wrapped up in words. If a word has you losing your mind, if a word is so activating and causes you to feel so disrespected that you can't stay within yourself, that word has too much power. Everybody doesn't have to agree. Nobody has to agree. Quite frankly, that's a part of my being direct and always having something to say, apparently. There is not a word that exists that I want to have the kind of power over me that it activates me so much that I am taken out of myself. I'm also not especially sensitive to the idea or the reality of being disrespected. I don't have to be up in arms and lose my mind to be able to say, listen, I hear what you described. That's accurate. We could talk about those pieces. But what we aren't going to do is name call. What you are going to do is address me as a bitch. That's what you're not going to do. I do personally, though, find it helpful if someone's calling me a name, tell me what you think you mean by it. I'll tell you if you're right. And then we'll also address the fact that you called me a name. What I used to tell my sister when she was younger was, if someone's calling you stupid, are you stupid? No. Okay. So imagine someone calling you stupid have the same level of power on you as if someone were to call you green. I'm not the color green. That would be weird. That would be dumb, quite frankly. That would not fit. It wouldn't be fitting. You can still address that someone called you a name, but there is no need to internalize it because it doesn't fit. I didn't need to internalize that this guy called me a bitch because the name doesn't fit. The description did. And we can address the description while also addressing the fact that we're not going to do that in terms of the name. My hope is that people are able to feel some sense of agency and some sense of liberation and some sense of steadiness with not letting words and things that people say to you and things that people call you, not allowing those to completely derail your center. I'm not saying don't be bothered. I'm not saying don't address it. I'm saying no word has the ability to derail your center without some form of consent. What words would you like to release? What words would you like to call your power back from? I'll see you all next time.